Hello and welcome to another episode of Good for Profits. I'm your host Mo, and this is the show where we speak with founders, entrepreneurs, startup ecosystem leaders, investors, you name it, who are helping build profitable companies for the shareholders, but also that are good for the world, good for the future, and so on and so forth. Our guest today is Alberto. Alberto is co-founder of FaceDonate. FaceDonate essentially help provide transparency when it comes to donations in the charity sector. They help companies or donors generally understand exactly where their money's going, how it's being spent, and by whom and on what, and so on and so forth, and also help fight inefficiencies when it comes to the charity sector. It's incredible. The conversation was lovely. Alberto is a very nice person, and I'm not just saying that because he brought me croissants and coffee on the show, but he's genuinely a very lovely person. I really enjoyed the conversation, and it's incredible to hear about the work they're doing at FaceDonate and some of the food banks and some of the other charities that they're working with at the moment to provide better services for everyone, including the person that's being donated to at the very end, the recipient. We spoke in this conversation about a few different things, a little bit about his background, a little bit about some philosophical stuff. Sometimes you go on a bit of tangent, a little bit about some general societal stuff, as you can probably expect. But more importantly, we spoke about the business side of things, some things around operations and what it's like to work in the charity sector and so on and so forth, as we usually do on the podcast. So, conversation was amazing. I personally really enjoyed it, and I hope that you will too. So without further ado, here is a conversation with Alberto. Welcome to the podcast, Alberto.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure to have you here with us today, my friend.
Thank you, Mo, for inviting me. This is very exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting for me as well. We're just starting to do the video ones now, so this is very exciting. We talked previously a little bit online, got to know each other a little bit. Very excited about what you're working on, so we're going to dive deep into that and understand more about it.
Absolutely.
I'm also very keen to find out more about your personal story. Alberto, by the way, you brought us croissants today. I want to acknowledge that while we're live.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, my friend. So if you guys hear us eating a little bit later on, then you know what we're eating essentially.
It's my fault, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. If you hear a little rustling in the background, like the kid in the back of the class, just with a little wrapper.
But you got the videos, right? So you see the crumbles at one point.
Yeah, that's very good fun. Yeah, some people might be listening and not watching, but still they'll actually see the crumbles. So I only found out today that you're Italian.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I thought maybe, yes, Alberto sounds like an Italian name, sure. But I didn't I didn't put one and one together. So yeah, so now I know that
I'm from Belluno. Belluno is a small town in the northeast of Venice. So the Dolomites, I'm a mountain boy. They mix my life between London, big city, and countryside.
What do you prefer?
The mix.
Yeah. That's a fair point. That's a really fair point. Do you, because obviously Venice has beautiful beaches as well, right? Or is that you just don't tend to go there when you live in that part?
So Venice is a beautiful place. It's an hour drive, and it happens that maybe I go once a month or once every 6 weeks. There's always some good exhibition or something.
Okay.
Good afternoon out. There's a good day in Venice. The beaches tend to go to further ones that are nicer, so either in Croatia or in other parts of Italy.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
I suppose it is very easy because when you're in mainland, I always forget that. When you're in mainland Europe, it's much easier to get around. I always forget that.
Yeah, that's
a really good
part
point.
of not being an island.
Yeah. Maybe we should move. Just go over there, and that would make a lot more sense.
Well, kind of like 3 years ago, it was much easier, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Why is that? Because of a wonderful decision that we decided to make.
I don't know.
Yeah. I have so many thoughts on that, but anyway, we won't get into this. We won't get into this.
It's a basket case.
We could get into it if we really want to, but I think I'd rather not.
I think
I'd rather
interesting things that are less controversial.
Absolutely. Although controversy is not always a bad thing, right? It depends on what it is. I think you need you sometimes need the push back and forth to make sure that we are able to see what extremes are and make sure that we're kind of like behaving in a.
That creates conversation, right? Yeah. If there is which is a very dangerous, I think, point of our current culture, which is mono view. So if everyone thinks the same, then
it's a problem.
Is it right?
Exactly. That's a very good question. That's actually a really good question. Like, what defines what is what is right and so on. But we can leave those esoteric and crazy questions for a little bit down the line, because this would be a tangent that we'll probably talk about for 2 hours. So yeah. So Alberto, your background, the current gig for you, the current main thing that you're doing at the moment is that you're working on Face Donate.
True.
Do you want to tell our listeners a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So Face Donate is a platform to collect, manage, allocate, and report on donations in its essence. Why is it interesting? I think because we use wacky technology, some machine learning, some AI, some computer vision to be able to trace donations from the donor to the charity to the ultimate beneficiary. And we close the feedback loop of charity by reporting back to everyone in the chain and making this very transparent and visible. Why are we doing this? Because as economists and founders, both of us are kind of with that mindset. We looked at the charity sector, which is a massive, massive sector. We can deal in numbers later.
Sure.
And we thought that we would like to be more generous, or we'd like to see the impact of our own actions. So by creating a closed feedback loop, it's possible to create trust and increase generosity. Or that's kind of our ultimate proposition. And we're seeing that it works.
Wow.
So just let me give you an example of some projects that we're doing, because otherwise it seems very out of touch.
I mean, it sounds definitely the concept, to me at least, it makes sense. When you close the feedback loop, when people can directly see their efforts and what they lead to in other people's lives, then that makes them more likely to donate again. And it also gives them a sense of, empowerment, engagement, happiness, content, whatever.
This is high level from the donor perspective. Yeah. Then there are many parts in this there are many moving parts in this environment, right? So if you look at charities are great, but sometimes they've not invested as much as other sectors did in technology. So they're lagging behind effectively, and they're spending a lot of resources on people, on labor, on volunteering, on reporting. So if you look at numbers of charity numbers, you see that in fundraising and reporting, it's about 50% of charity income, right? From 35 to 50%. That's a lot of money that is not spent on causes, right? So if we can use technology to make charity more efficient and without tampering their goal, and we make it very easy for them to use these tools, we think that there is a great scope for them to do better what they do.
Yeah.
And then on the other side you have recipients, right? So individuals that are affected by charity. So we work a lot with charities that deal with individuals.
Okay.
So let's forget for a second cancer research and these massive institutions, but let's talk about food banks in a moment in which there is a high cost of living crisis and prices are skyrocketing and people are struggling to get to month's ends, right? And we're seeing that the way this is dealt is very, very inefficient. So you have the retail sector that wastes a lot of food.
Sure.
And you have charity that spend a lot of money to kind of replicate what the retail sector has nailed down to the T. So what our proposition is in here is, why don't we allow charity to allocate digital credit to individuals so they can buy what they need at local stores directly, and we chop kind of the middleman by freeing up a lot of resources.
That
and charities
makes a lot of sense.
And
that's really interesting.
This is what we're getting traction with in London. We were just awarded 6 months ago by Innovate UK, so UKRI.
Congratulations, my friend.
Thank you.
That's great.
It's a small thing, but it's a big tap on the shoulder, kind of seeing that the direction we're taking makes sense, not only in our heads, but also in other people's mind. And I'm proud of this. I would like to see it happening more. Why? Because after people use our system, so people go shop and charities chop cost and donors receive feedback and retailers sell more goods in their own community. Everybody seems happy with that. And we do that and we increase efficiency by kind of like at least 30% right away. Okay, so we reduce the cost of delivering a parcel by £10 on the cheapest parcel. So people get a crate of food today when they go to a food bank that they don't choose. And that has a massive cost because there are all overheads and so on and so forth to give that crate to that person.
Okay.
So if we can chop that up, then it makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, so that sounds like a really obvious solution.
That's what I think, right?
Yeah,
it's like, why is it not? Why?
That sounds like I think it's definitely worth going a little bit as well into the the biometric side of things, how people feel about that and so on, because it seems like a very obvious solution. I just feel like that might be one of the barriers or one of the reasons why people think maybe not. Well, it's partly because they think, well, are people going to be willing to give up whatever information? Are they going to feel safe about it and so on? So I understand from the technology background, like there is a lot of things you can put in place to try and to make those things secure, encryption, blah, blah, blah. I don't know enough about the security side of things to go into detail, but I do know that there are ways of encrypting a lot of that data, a lot of that information. But perhaps maybe that's one of the reasons why we haven't seen this yet is because of that kind of bit of sentiment, perhaps.
So I think that the sentiment is changing toward technology. So if we realistically, those technologies are used everywhere we go. If we go to a supermarket, to a self-checkout, there is a camera in front of our face. If we enter a shop, there is a camera that is checking our temperature or is seeing who we are. Then it's probably not matching it with another database until something happens, right? So we are kind of passive in taking these technologies, or this technology is being used on us on a daily basis. And generally it's been used on us to sell us something. Okay. What we are suggesting is that people should be empowered irrespectively of the ability to have a bank account or to have a formal identity, to receive basic services like shelter, housing, food, get their bills paid. Why? Because it's just much, much, much cheaper for our society as a whole to provide for these people now than to provide for these people down the line. These people sounds weird and sounds offensive, but
I get it.
But this is the reality of things. So I'll give you a practical example. Cheap food is generally highly processed, hypercaloric food. So you can get chicken and fries for £1.50 in London, but you cannot get an healthy meal for £1.50. That's
clear. Absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
Okay?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And if I only have £1.50 for a meal, I'm most likely gonna eat chicken
high
and
caloric
fries.
and high protein or whatever
Because
it might be.
And if we think about the reason for this is because fat and sugar are very rare in nature.
Yeah, of course.
And we are animals, and our brain is wired to crave for these things that are rare in nature, right? So we don't do it. We don't even do it on purpose. We're like, okay, this is difficult to find, or 40,000 of previous human history is very difficult to change in 200 years of modern history. So it's wired in our brain that
more like 150,000, but probably even longer.
Exactly. No, exactly. But if we say from civilization,
for sure.
So very difficult to find. So when we find it, we want to get it, and that's our animal impulse. So if you want to call it that way. So it's much more difficult to say, all right, I'm gonna have a salad and a banana for that £1.50. The repercussions of this in long term and continuation of this is obesity. We are living in an obese society, and obesity costs the NHS 26 billion per year. Simple as that.
Wow.
So feeding everyone properly does not cost closely that much. So
that's a very interesting way to think about it. So feeding everybody properly doesn't cost that much money. I love thinking about things from those kind of economic terms because it just kind of helps understand fundamentally what is going on. But then you also have to start diving deeper and try to understand, well, why is it this way? Or, where are the inefficiencies and so on and so forth.
Absolutely.
So it seems to me like you've kind of hit on something where there is a lot of inefficiencies in the way that these things are run right now, food banks and so on and so forth. And there's a way of potentially going direct looking to the end user, cutting out the middleman, which means cutting out about 50% of the cost. So at least for that part, you can be providing, healthy food for more people.
Correct.
Who, especially people who can't afford to necessarily buy the healthiest food. And there will be obviously other solutions to help fix obesity, because there are other problems I actually was having. I was having a conversation, funny enough, yesterday I was having a conversation with Sarah Roberts from Healthy Nibbles.
Amazing.
And they're trying to fix, again, it's similar mission, how do you make sure that people eat the best foods and so on, but going at it from a different angle of how to make sure that when you're at work, when you're whatever, you have all the access to the best foods available. So it seems like that this is a huge problem. And obviously we do know that obesity is a huge problem of our generation. And it's awesome to see that so many different people are going at it from different angles. Looking at this side of things, looking at this kind of from the healthy food for people, especially people who can't afford it side of things. So how do you go about fixing that right now? So let's start with the food bank thing and give us some examples, as you suggested earlier.
Let me answer this question first, but then let's go back on the biometrics answer, right?
Absolutely.
Because I didn't answer that.
Yeah.
So, for who doesn't know how food banks work today, basically they are charities or community organizations that receive donations in food. So they go collect food from different places. So if you go to Tesco, there might be a collection box, or if you go to another supermarket, there might be a collection box. They go there, pick it up, and redistribute that. They also collect money, that's a donation in cash, and they use this cash to buy food and to cover the costs to redistribute this food to people. Generally, the food is pre-packed, processed food, because there are no chilling facilities in this type of organizations.
Sure. Yeah.
This makes the food that has been delivered very standard and not culturally appropriate. So if you are Muslim, or if you are if you're kosher, if you have different,
or if you're vegetarian or whatever
exactly.
it might be.
If you have different dietary requirement, you cannot really access the food that is for you. So with our proposition, the same amount of value or the same amount of money that it would cost the charity to buy the food is allocated to the individual on a digital wallet via Face Donate. So the individual going to the food bank can choose either the parcel or the credit on Face Donate. With the credit on Face Donate, they can go in certain shops around East London on a bunch of participating retailers.
Now already participating. That's brilliant. We'll come more into that, because
now we are in Dalston, so for who knows the area, there is a big market that's called Ridley Road. That is one of the oldest market in East London, where people shop, and it's cheap to shop because fruit and vegetables and meat are at a fair price.
Yep.
And so basically, with this credit on their app, they go to the shop, they register or they log in the app as in any app, and they take a selfie, like if you were doing with Apple Pay. So that's a simplified thing.
That's a really important point.
Yeah.
I know you just kind of went over that very roughly, but like Apple Pay, that's a really important point. We already use our face to pay for things, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, absolutely. But let's dig that in a second.
Okay.
So I take a selfie of myself, and that releases a QR code. That is a time-limited QR code, so I cannot really exchange it with anyone else. So I know that money, and let's dig on why we do this for a second. So that money can be spent by the person who received it, and the retailer scans the QR code and takes a picture of the receipt, and that receipt gets compiled for the charity and for the donors into feedback. So in real time where your money has been spent, not by whom, but that has been spent.
Got it.
So this is completely anonymized.
Do you understand on what as well, or just that it's being spent?
Yeah. Okay. The receipts are itemized, so you kind of can dig deeper with another AI to see what people are buying. But this is not necessarily shared externally. We just want to make sure that the donor knows that all of the donations has been spent by someone on something they think is useful. Why itemizing items? Because this way we can prevent from the purchase of certain things.
Sure.
So, for example, alcohol and tobaccos are things that the charity we work with don't want their clients to purchase, and we can put a block onto that. Or another thing that we heard in the past, people don't want other people to purchase is credit for a credit card for phone top-ups. So you can top up your own phone, but you cannot really buy a £10 top-up because that's easy
something
to resell.
Sure.
Okay, so now let's dig a deeper on why we do this. If you might be interested. So
of course,
if you're in a situation, we learned, we came from the economic world and the consulting world, so we didn't know much about charity, and we came in with a lot of supposition and wrong thoughts. But then after doing this for volunteering and doing it for over 2 years, 2.5 years, we really understand some of the issues within the sector. So if you are in a situation of struggle and you have a bank account, which is possible, but not necessarily true. You might be in a situation of distress and not have a bank account, and then you're basically screwed. But if you do have a bank account and you are in debt and you receive a loan or some money to cover that debt or to pay for food, that money will go to the person that owns that money before you, so to the person you own money to, without you having the possibility to get out of that bad situation. So
that's not really so it doesn't actually help you in any way.
Exactly. So it's kind of being tricked into something that is depressing instead of enabling. So not having a separate bank account and having it related to the person instead of to anaggraphic data, so to biometrics, makes it very easy for the person to access that credit without that being part of any other solution. So that's point one. Point two is that the people that receive that credit might be in a situation of familiar distress. So they might be in an abusive situation, in an abusive relationship or something like that. So that money, if it was money, could be taken from them. And that doesn't solve the problem. So it's important that the person who receives the money is able to spend them. And that gives them that freedom and hope of owning something. And, it seems very silly, but going to buy your own food is important.
Yeah. I mean, it seems silly because it's something we take for granted because presumably, the majority of people who have access to this podcast, for example, probably are able to do that, right?
Absolutely. So that's why I'm digging.
But the consideration that there are some out there who are not able to do that, that's... it is definitely very, I don't know what the word is, humbling. I'm not sure what the word is, but
to me it's a bit depressing, right? But so I was reading numbers coming here this morning, and I don't want to believe that 18% of households in this country, in the UK, one of the richest countries in the world, are in distress, and they did not make their ends meet in the last month. Now, I don't want to believe that 1 in 5 families is that, but if we say that 1 in 20 families that, so 5% of the population, that would be crazy. And we're talking about millions of people. Okay. Wow. But 80% would be 18% would be like kind of 1 in 5. But if we say that, okay, maybe that's not maybe that's not totally accurate. The real need is a bit smaller than that. Okay. So like there's something wrong with the data or something. Because data is self-reported, so maybe I would have liked to eat them better last month. So I could self-report that. Got it. But so even assuming that it's 1 in 20, even assuming that it's 5% of the population, that's still bloody huge, especially in a first world country or a developed country, whatever you want to call it. But especially in a place where we're supposed to have incredible infrastructure, incredible logistics. We're pretty wealthy as a country in the UK. I do find it pretty fascinating that we haven't figured out sort of solutions to these problems. And I mean, you can go deeper into this and kind of talk about, well, where did inequalities come from? How long have they been around for? Blah, blah, blah. And, what can be done about them? There is potentially an argument to be made that there will always be some form of inequality in society. But at the very least, it should be the case that as nations advance, I mean, this is like the least in my opinion, that as nations advance,
then everybody's level should be advancing. Even if there is inequality, even if there's going to be people who are way wealthier than other people, everybody should be moving up, regardless of where they are in that, whatever. But it doesn't seem to be the case sometimes. So
exactly, this is very human and realistically simple thoughts that you're giving now is not the case in many of our consumeristic society. That's
sure.
But I do agree that this should be the case. I think there are countries that do a better job than others at taking care of, their society as a whole. But I think that in the UK we really embraced, and I feel part of this, but we really embraced what the idea that Maggie Thatcher put in our heads, that no society exists, just individuals, which to me is appalling. However, we kind of did embrace this somehow, and I think that this is a very, very interesting culture that drives to perfection and drives to creation and drives to innovation, but at the same time is sometimes not as supportive to their own people than other cultures are.
Yeah, and that's a really good way to put it. If I was to go deeper as well, I'd say that I don't know whether, yes, individualistic thought and capitalism and so on definitely drives innovation in massive ways. And so, look at us as an example, or anybody out there who's entrepreneurial or is going to found the company or a startup or whatever it might be. Any founder that's going to go and start a company knows I would like to hope that they know very well that it's an extremely risky thing to do, and the likelihood of failure is way higher than the likelihood of success, right? And the likelihood of immense success is extremely low, despite the fact that we see so many examples of the great companies that were founded from garages and so on. And it can be very exciting to see that and be like, oh my God, wow, yeah. Sure, have that be motivation, absolutely go for it. But the reality is that it's extremely difficult and unlikely to succeed to that point. But nonetheless, people do it, right? And I think there are multiple reasons there. And I would argue that it's not just because they believe in the mission and they're passionate about it. I would argue that that's one element of it. If we were in a society where you weren't going to reap extremely high rewards for extremely high risk, I would argue that less people would take that risk.
I agree with you.
So in a way, it does work to drive innovation. But then, okay, we've driven innovation, we've rewarded people for high risk. Then what, right?
Then what we do with it?
Yeah,
I kind of agree with this, and so silly examples on this. So,
but it's a difficult one. But yeah,
but I do agree, right? So a society that so two things. We need to be able to understand the history we come from. So this is a society that has been, as we were talking before, this is realistic, geographically an island with a lot of bad weather, and people were willing to explore from a very early age. Yeah. And they went all over the world, right? And that created bad things, but also good things. Yeah. Now, we cannot really say that colonialism was a good thing, but it created that sense of reach, at least. Yeah. That the world is kind of an oyster that you can touch and you can embrace somehow. And I think that this comes from being a bit pirates. Okay. So. The opium
is this you officially saying that everybody should be a pirate
well, we are in pirate studios. No, I'm not saying that everybody should be a pirate at all. I'm saying that there is this mentality of adventure, and adventure,
curiosity, and
exactly,
it's a very human thing.
Yeah, but then there are societies that did explore that and embrace that, and I think that the English society or the English culture is one of those, and there are societies that did this much less.
And I would also argue on that point that it's one of the more recent examples that have done that, and that this has happened. As painful as it is, if you take a wide historical view on this, might be a little bit of a controversial thing to say, but the reality is that we have all been invading each other and migrating to different places and doing it's just happened over and over again for thousands and thousands of years. And that's not to say that, you know, we should continue doing that. Absolutely not, because we've gained knowledge and better understanding and so on, and like, you know, evolved ideologically to understand that, okay, you know, invading each other and killing each other is probably a bad idea. And I'm kind of happy that we got. I'm kind of glad we got there.
Every day.
I think I would say that we have to an extent. I would say, yes, there's a lot of craziness happening in the world right now. I agree. Per capita, we are way better than we've ever been.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And so, yes, there's going to be bumps on the way, but we're overall moving in an upward direction, at least I'd like to think. And hopefully there won't be any World War III or anything like that anytime soon. And hopefully we can carry on in that journey. But
not good.
yeah. I mean, we say that we're touching the wood the whole time, so we're all good. But yeah, but back to the point is that, you know, so yes, you're absolutely right in that sense of reach, that sense of kind of exploration, that curiosity, to want to go beyond and figure out what's out there. That's something that's...
But then let me throw something at you, right? So maybe we just do it in different ways. Like forget conflicts for a second.
Okay.
Yeah? But maybe we just influence in different ways, right? We influence through social media, we influence through outfits and to music and to food and this is standardizing somehow. Because you have better and better companies, you have better and better products, you have better and better thinking. So look at GTP3, you know, the opening. But I didn't see how much it grew in the first hours, you know. So I know that for 3 months old, I tried to try it yesterday, but I couldn't get access to it.
What for?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you?
You should get Plus. It's worth it.
Okay, cool.
It's much faster.
Okay, cool.
It's a lot faster. And I mean the new GPT-4 is much slower than the previous versions.
Okay.
But it's a lot more intuitive and whatnot. So yeah. Okay. So.
Interesting. So there are these kind of technologies that are absolutely revolutionizing the way we do things, the way we approach things, the way we interact with others. And these are big trends. So maybe you don't colonize, using that bad word, physically, but you influence other people emotionally and in a much softer way.
Sure.
But then look at all the voices about TikTok and the difference between the algorithm in Asia or in China and in Europe and the US, you know. What is cool and rewarded in China is being intelligent and successful, not fucking dancing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
absolutely,
it's driving things around.
Absolutely, and you're 100% spot on there in that we are still influencing continuously all over the world, and every culture wants to. It's such an interesting thing. I love it, but I also think we should be careful with it, because, you know, every culture thinks they have it figured out and that they should spread that to everybody else.
But then what is culture and what is tradition? Like, is there a difference between?
Carry on. Yeah.
Are you all right?
Yeah, I'm just double checking something here. And
okay,
we're
cool.
All good. We're all good.
Right, wonderful. So what is culture and what is tradition? And do you want to learn about your own culture and other people's culture, which is something that I think we're missing because we're kind of standardizing and getting toward the mean instead of understanding that there is beauty in diversity and there is beauty in unique in you know unity. So we're all. I think we're beautiful because we're all human. We're all diverse, and we would be even more interesting and beautiful if you knew where we come from, and we had a strong understanding and a strong knowledge of our own traditions and our own history and mythology and whatever. And we were also curious about other people's mythology and so on and so forth, because I'm sure that there are amazing stories that of creation, of the world, of whatever that can be said by, I don't know, people living in northern Alaska that are very different from the ones that are from Bali or from the ones that come from a small town in the Dolomites, like myself.
Absolutely. Small town, interesting. Yeah, no, that's a very good point. Yeah, that's a really good point. I haven't heard of the myth of creation from the Dolomites, but if there is a specific one other than the Roman version or the Christian version, I'd love to hear it.
I think that's the standard one. But I think
we are all Dolomites deep down.
Exactly. We are all parts of.
Of course.
Maybe one thought that I had previously in my life is like once I saw that we can now write information on bacteria, right? So how did life get on Earth? Maybe our next way of moving toward a new planet might not be on spaceship, but might be in terms of bacteria that contain the information for the whole future humanity, or for a future creation of nature to exist in a different place, Because if you can write the history of DNA in something peculiar, maybe you can recreate something that happened from scratch somehow. So could that be a new history of creation going forward? I don't know. That's just weird thoughts.
Isn't that one of the myths about? So if we just take that back one step, that what is it called? Panspermia or something?
Yeah, I don't know. Is that a thing?
I think I might be butchering this.
No, please.
The internet is not working. It's really annoying because I would like to look this up as we talk and actually get an answer. I think panspermia, is the theory.
Thank you. See, I thought I had an idea. Instead, I'm just probably copied it from someone.
No, I mean we're all borrowing thoughts all the time, and I don't think it. Okay, so panspermia is the hypothesis first proposed in the 5th century. Blah, blah, blah. The life exists throughout the universe, distributed by space dust, meteoroids, asteroids, and comets and planetoids, as well as by spacecraft carrying unintended contamination. So it's not quite, no. So this is unintended. This is just life spreading all over the universe, whereas yours is more intentional. An alien species, aka us, creates this thing that goes to other planets. And
my own thing is like, how beautiful it is to compile such a complex amount of information in something as small as a bacteria that can resist and withstand massive temperature and difference and pressure. Can we? Maybe that's a good way of exchanging information, of preserving information. So.
Yeah, that's. I'm not sure how we went down this rabbit hole, but yeah, absolutely. No, that is really interesting.
Let's come up with it.
No, I love it. I love it. We could definitely go down this for ages. Yeah, it's it is an interesting one, and I think aren't we already? Didn't we produce a disc or something or a CD or something like that we've put out in the world already?
Yeah.
Or doesn't the International Space Station contain something like this? Right.
There are some documents that are.
It's like the history of humanity, and it's like from each age that we've been through. I remember something super silly being on there from like the 2000s or something, like an advert, like a TV commercial or something stupid. Like it is part of it is part of like where we are now. So fascinating stuff. So going back to
reality.
Going back. So we arrived here by talking about kind of the curiosity and the wanting to do different things and kind of spread ideologies and so on. But prior to that, we were talking about the idea. So going a little bit back to Face Donate, I suppose we were talking about the idea of of using technology to be able to see where your donations are going and where things are going. So I want to talk a bit about biometrics and the thoughts around that, sentiment around that, and so on and so forth.
So again, I think that biometric is a tool. I think that we should own our own biometrics, but we realistically don't, because we are we're passive by being the subject of biometric being taken on us all the time, everywhere. Yeah. So you probably heard about Amazon walk-in technology, and now there is a new technology that Amazon is releasing. You pay with your hand, you just move your hand, and they recognize that it's your hand, not somebody else's hand. And
wow,
yeah, exactly.
How do they do that exactly? That's insane.
I don't know. You gotta ask Jeff.
Just give him a call.
No, but I've seen it happening. I was like, oh, this is super cool. And but then, okay, these technologies are used by massive. They're produced by massive companies, but they're also used by massive companies. And the level of security that they have nowadays are the same level of security that the NHS or the CIA or this big provider require, right? So information is highly encrypted in the databases. We are not creating the technology, unfortunately. We are using technology off the shelves. So
but I mean it's pretty good. The technology out there is pretty good in that sense, right? No. So if you use like some sort of encryption technology that is being used by some of the best organizations in the world, it's amazing that that's accessible to startups.
That's the point, right? So you have the ability to literally use the same technology that is used by, I don't know, NASA, CIA, which is mind-blowing, right? Like 15 years ago, this wasn't absolutely the case. So this has been how far we went through expanding ideas from somewhere and letting everybody take the best of them and use them for their own needs. So I think that this is what is happening here. I think that on the other side of biometrics, there are users, right? So people that are sharing their data in order to access a service. Now, if our company is a social enterprise, we have no intention of reselling this data or to use this data for any other purpose. The only reason we use them is to allocate quality, in this case money, to an individual. It could be another quality if you thought about it, so presence or whatever, or credits or points or whatever, or gamifying it in some way. So it doesn't matter. But in this case, is money. And the fact that is 3 times more efficient, more for the individual itself, and they get choice, and they get to buy what they need, so they get a little bit of hope. It compiles in an offer that is realistically much better than what they get right now. So the outcome is realistically very simple. Should I'm a mom of 4, should I go in a place and get food that my kids are not gonna eat and I'm not choosing, or should I use this thing that and not sharing my picture to anyone, because this is very important. The picture is not on this, like, is hidden in the system. It's just in forms of data points on a screen that the software recognizes and puts together and says, yes, this data points matches this data point, so it's the same person. But it's not a matter of picture being taken a part of the process, but it's not the outcome. It's not, they're not visible. So this is giving me so much advantages. My image is not being shared elsewhere. Nobody knows that I'm here. And realistically, going back to one of the first things we said, so now charities manage data very poorly, if we have to say. So they probably sit on somebody's PC without an antivirus that has most likely Windows 95 or equivalent.
Is that bad? I mean, I don't know if I would get any work done. I'd probably just open Paint and just play around with it.
Now I'm bashing it.
Of course.
But,
I get the point, though. I mean, the general idea that charities are pretty outdated, that does make, I mean, and this is not to shit on charities. I mean, they do incredible work, but there are the inefficiencies are. It's pretty evident that there are a lot of inefficiencies.
They're very much concentrating on doing what the way I see is that if you are in a situation of continuous urgency, you need to put off the fire. Right? So you don't have ever time to step back and think about what you're doing, because you just need to do it. So
this is so interesting. So I do have some thoughts around charities and what I believe or feel like charities should be focused on. And obviously, my thoughts constantly with anything in the world, in life, constantly evolving, constantly improving, and so on, right? So, yes, I'm going to say this now, but I might change my mind in 3 weeks' time when I learn a new piece of information, right? So what I do feel like at the moment, though, is that charities are best suited for urgent things, and any solution, anything that is beyond urgency should be done by something that is a good for profit. Let's coin the term.
Okay, I like it that way.
Because, volcano hits a town, charity, urgency, get a lot of money in there, go in quickly, get things done. Inefficiencies, yes. Fast action, a lot of volume, absolutely. So be it. Doesn't matter with the inefficiencies, right? But hunger in first world societies, sanitation problems in developing countries. There are so many problems out there that are, in my opinion, are just not a good match for charities, because charities they don't behave that way. And so it's so interesting that you are saying that as well. I'm really happy that somebody who's in that sector and is really doing a lot of work there is kind of sharing similar thoughts. I guess that makes me feel like
very much agree on this.
Yeah.
There are two elements that I would like to touch upon here. So charities don't have they have a service delivery in mind, but they don't necessarily have an economic model in mind. So they take resources, they move resources around in order to serve a useful purpose in the immediate time. Now, who should be best placed to do this? Up to some years ago, governments were, right?
Yeah.
So, let's touch upon the other aspect of Face Donate, because I think that we are touching a very, very important bit here. So, governments have less and less resources. They're investing it probably not as wisely or as inclusively as they could sometime, and they don't have any money. Yeah, so governments can print more money, but they don't want to have more money.
Okay. Well, for many reasons, but
for many, let's leave it there. Let's leave it there.
We're seeing a lot of examples of printing more money lately in different parts of the world. So let's
SVB and whatever. let's leave it there for a second. But printing more money. Well, let's put it this way: governments don't tend to print more money to take an action for the invisible ones. Okay, they may want to print more money to take an action for the very visible ones.
Okay.
Yeah? So, but corporates do have a lot of money.
Yeah, sure.
Corporates are full of cash these days. Okay, so the bigger the company, the more the cash.
Yeah,
and people that are living in this society, I think, like yourself and myself, want to have something a bit more than a job. So they want to have meaning. They want to feel part of something. They want to know that what they feel part of is also good for the continuation of our species, of our environment, of our society, of our way of doing things. And so on this end, what was once called corporate social responsibility now is simplifying a lot, but what was now called CSR. So let's do a get around, or let's support this charity, or let's make sure that our corporate is a good citizen somehow. Is now turned into ESG metrics, right? Somehow. So how can we be productive, but also environmentally, socially, and sustainable from a government's perspective. Now, I think that the environmental side has been touched upon a lot of times. We kind of know what corporates can do to invest and rewilden and be less impactful from a carbon footprint, or from their emissions, or they can offset the behavior somehow. Now, the government side of it has been touched by, being more inclusive, or being more open, or being more equal in terms of opportunities.
Sure.
And now, this social aspect is a massive aspect, right? Is how corporates or how organizations behave in the place where they live and they operate, and that has a massive impact, because they create employment, they create externalities, and a bit of these externalities generally is supporting charities. Okay, so
local charities doing good for the community and so on.
So they are already doing it.
Yeah.
Okay, and what we are saying is, if they do it via Face Donate, they also have the possibility in real time to track what the charities are doing and to kind of claim the help they contributed to that sense. And so by creating this, by closing this feedback loop, you kind of do two things at once. You're allowing corporates to visibly have an impact in their local communities, and you're allowing charities to report back to corporates that as the byproduct of making them talk the corporate language. And potentially, we hope in the future to become a little bit more efficient in what they do.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay, makes a lot of sense.
That's it?
Yeah. So well, as in, you also help in the corporates really showcase what they're doing from a charitable perspective and really where the money is going when they're donating to charity and so on. So obviously makes a lot of sense there as well. And yeah, you're right to touch on that point of, I mean, businesses should also be giving back to the community and local communities and so on and so forth. So it's a good thing that we're moving in that direction and they're delivering that stuff. Now we can actually measure what they're doing and so on, which is great. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I think it's an incredible idea, and I kind of want to, from the entrepreneurial side of things, dive a little bit as well into some of the challenges, some of the things of that you've come across so far, kind of where you are at the moment with the company and so on. There are listeners who are entrepreneurs. Some of them are doing their own stuff. Some of them are starting their own stuff. So it's always good to kind of like learn from each other's experience as well.
What did Elon Musk said is opening a company is like staring into the abyss and eating glass.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Is that what it feels like for you right now?
No, I'm joking. It's an incredible adventure, as we discussed. So when you depart from an adventure, you know what you knew, but you don't know what's in front of you. That's for sure. So I think that right now with the company we're proud of having having a turnover. We have a tiny turnover. We're working.
That's great. Congratulations.
Yeah. So this is a massive recent achievement, which means that there is a value, there is a perceived value in the product we offer.
Yep.
So it took us about 18 months to get to this place. We tested and pivoted different kind of solutions, and now we got to this thing that is a good working product that people are using. So
that's great.
With this working product, we are supporting about 400 people in East London every week.
Wow.
Buy what they need, which is not closely not close to the volume of people that are in need of.
Yeah, of course.
But it's kind of saying that yes, we're doing it. We're working with about 20 or 30 shops here in East London. Small markets or mums and pop stores, and we hope that we can have a better conversation with larger retailers because they have a problem of food waste and we have a
solution.
Basically. But then we're not saying that people that are poor should buy food waste. We're just making the connection that if
I think the word food waste as well is a bit of a thing, like
surplus. Yeah,
it's basically it's not rubbish. It's literally extra food that wasn't sold for some reason or another, because we're bad at planning. The amount of food waste in this country is unbelievable. I was reading a statistic around this recently, and I can't remember what it was, but it was extremely high. It was like 20%, 25% or something like that.
I'm confusing right now because I know that it's billions, but if you look for food waste in the UK, that will give you a big number. Now I think I'm confusing the numbers between Europe.
So the UK throws away around 9.5 million tons of food in a single year.
Yeah, but that's equivalent to how many billions? That's in the billions.
Yeah, of course. So let's have a look.
From the retail sector, that's the interesting bit. So retail.
So household is the majority.
Yeah.
And then retail is about 12% of the total food waste.
But that's equivalent to something silly in billions.
So that was it. I think this was about 33% of global food goes to waste every year, which is just nuts.
Yeah, we have bad. Food needs to be produced in a different way.
Speaking of food, should we have a croissant?
Should you?
So now we can chew in people's ears. It's thank you for bringing those, man. It's very, very Italian of you. On the way here, you were like, "Well, I can't come without a coffee or something in my hands. I mean, what kind of Italian would I be?" And I love it. It's fantastic.
I think that I felt that you were inviting me in your home to do something that is interesting.
Yeah, sure. Like, this is where I live.
Because you're a real pirate.
Yes, exactly. Precisely that. So, this is your first startup, right? Face Donate.
Is the first startup that I co-found. Is not the first startup I worked on or with. Is actually, as a consultant, I worked on 2 other startups before.
Mm-hmm.
Which gave me great insight on the struggles of a startup. So,
so you're a consultant. Maybe we can go back and talk a bit about the kind of the sort of
my journey,
professional history in quotes.
If you like. So I studied economics originally, and then I in Italy, and then I came to the UK. I did a master at UCL, and from there I started working in consultancy. I worked for Acon, which is a massive conglomerate that does construction basically around the world. It's an American conglomerate, a big brand, big firm. And I did an interesting project with them. So I was in charge of remodeling construction indices for the Bank of England and the ONS. So why is that important? Because construction is 10% of a country's GDP, and basically, if you say that construction is growing or is not growing, can affect policy. Because if you understand how that is going, 10% deviation on that index means that you can make your policies wrong.
Wow.
So. We had an index that did not track completely the 2008 crash, and we needed a new index. That was 2012. I'm old.
Okay. I see. Wow.
And we did something that was much, much better. And
is that what we're using right now?
They're using my bits, and then they're using something from Shushin Mao, a professor at the National Institute of Social and Economic Research, good friend of mine, that invented this model that used ahead of times big data in order to capture or to scrape nudges from the web. Kind of like directions and the perceptions.
Very interesting.
Super interesting.
As in like people's perceptions, not just from people, or not just from the markets and whatnot?
Not just from big scraping data. So
got it.
Some of it is qualitative, but most of it is kind of quantitative.
Sure.
Then compiling the two together kind of give direction, indication, and you can understand if plus growing, minus. Plus, minus.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
In a very simplified way for,
So I did that, and then I went
that sounds incredible. That must have felt like you were working on something huge, the sense of kind of sort of feedback.
Thank you for saying that, but it was a big thing for me because it was the first time I was thrown into a project. Realistically, I have no idea what I was doing. And I think that there were signs of that by the end of it. But I think we really improved in the 18 months or 24 months that I worked on that. It was a super small team. So basically, it was me and another guy trying to solve these big problems that people were not able to solve. I think that a lot of it was good. A lot of it was learning, and a lot of it just gave me the confidence to do other things in my life.
Sure.
So then I worked for TfL for a while. We bought a tunnel. We bought the Silvertown tunnel. So it's difficult to buy a tunnel.
Sorry. Such a strange thing. Which one is the Silvertown tunnel again?
Silvertown is a East River crossing. So
okay. So you bought...
It's about to be open. I think they're opening or they're...
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're just finalizing construction.
That's great, because like links in East and South East London are just practically non-existent. Yeah.
And so
wait. Tell me more. So you bought a tunnel. So what?
Oh, not me personally.
Okay.
But I was part of the
team that was tasked with finding the right tunnel.
No, it's interesting, right? So I don't know if you know what a PPP or a PFI project is. It's a private-public partnership.
Okay, got it.
It's an accounting way.
Mm-hmm.
It's an accounting way to make sure that the cost of a large capital project is spread over a number of years from the public perspective. Okay? So this means different things.
Okay.
It means that you can do more projects than one with the same amount of budget available every year. It also means that projects tend to cost double what they should cost, because you pay a lender to borrow you money to do something that has a very long operative time. So very good, very bad.
Wow.
Now in the middle, the truth probably sits somewhere in the middle, by which you kind of say yes, but the builder and operator of such a project that is complex, is underwater, is a mess.
Yeah.
Or could be a mess if something goes wrong.
Yeah,
also
of course.
maintains it and operates it until the project repays itself. So you need to kind of think about how can you be prescriptive in what you need without being too stringent to impede technology improvement or kind of. So you need to find the right structure of incentive for the lenders. So for the banks that are gonna borrow you billions or something like that. You need to find the right incentive for the contractors and the developers and the operators. So it's difficult.
Wow, very interesting. So you were tasked with that, and then you worked with the team. No, of course. I mean, nobody does anything alone. So your team was tasked with that, and you guys did successfully get a tunnel. That's great.
I worked there for.
Does that mean I can now use the tunnel toll free?
No, I think I'm paying for it as well. So.
Oh, really? Damn it. I was hoping this would be the take. That was the whole reason why I was having this conversation. I was hoping that would be the takeaway.
Absolutely. That's the reason.
Incredible. So TFL, and then what next?
And then I did a bit of consulting. I worked in a strategy consulting firm in central London. It was more a sweatshop, doing strategy work for the big industrial players. So
beautiful.
That was super interesting.
A lot of learning.
Super fast pace, team of 20 delivering in micro groups projects on 10 days to 2 weeks. So super fast pace, super interesting.
Very cool.
That was probably the place where I learned the most. Strategic analytics. Thumbs up to you, Fi. And then I did different projects. So I went into private consulting. I consulted for some very interesting projects. Again, measuring social benefits, for example, for capital project for the Oxford University. And then I did 2 of those. But then I was contracted by 2 startups, one in the tourism sector and one in the public funding kind of simplification. And we brought the idea. In both cases, I was able to manage a team and bring the idea from scratch on a piece of paper to a workable product with clients. And then I left because the team wasn't the structure wasn't there. The struggle was too much. It wasn't mine. I didn't feel that I was adding something useful that was pushing me to wake up every day. Okay. And now it is kind of thing, right?
That's great. That's really good. So looking back at that, with the lens of, you've learned a lot of skills on the way, a lot of things. Looking back at that, which of those experiences have been the most useful for you to help you in founding a startup? And then the second question on top of that is, if you could go back and change something about your career, knowing what you know now, because you now have a bit more of an understanding of what it takes to go into a startup, at least to get it to revenue phase and so on, and to, like, you might say it's early stage or whatever, it doesn't matter. But to get it to the point of where you are now, you will have inevitably had to jump through a lot of hoops and go through a lot of struggle. Knowing what you know now, if you could go back and change something about your career trajectory so that you'd be better equipped for this, what would you change, if anything?
So, if I was jumping back to when I was 17 or 18, I would probably take a more quantitative degree at uni. So, like, I don't know, biology, maths, something like that, or engineering, probably engineering.
Biology is quantitative, and
yeah,
the statistics side, sure, yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
It's a lot of memorizing, though, biology.
But then there's a lot of logic as well, right? So
yeah,
I like the way of solving problems from a scientific point of view.
Okay, got it.
So
yeah.
I think that that is the most useful skill that I learned at uni, and then I think that there was a lot of noise in my path. So I would try to join a small consulting firm like the one that I mentioned before, like Strategic Analytics, or like Bain, or like Mars, or like this kind of top guys, not the big four. The
top three instead of the big four or something.
Yeah, exactly. LEC, LEK, or McKinsey, like this kind of guys. Strategy. I think these guys kind of do it really well. Why? Because they put so much pressure on you, and they give you a structure in order to diffuse that pressure, and you need to act, quick. And I like that learning process, very quantitative, very repeatable, very standardized way of problem solving. You start from a way, you combine the information you have, you find new information, you compile that again, and then you basically create new information that you can give your clients.
Okay.
And so I think that was super, super useful to me. And so probably engineering, then 2, 3, 4 years in a fast-paced strategy consulting environment, that would be enough.
Okay, very interesting.
For trying things.
For trying something like this. Yeah. Okay, because there are a lot of things that you need to learn sort of on the go when you do this, when you're starting something, right? So that's from a career perspective. And something else I'm curious to find out about, and I'm curious to learn this about different people. So at the moment, are you solo founder, co-founder?
I'm the co-founder of this.
Okay.
Yeah, Alexander Kulakov, good friend of mine.
Shout out to Alexander.
Yeah, cheers, Alex. Thank you. Allowed me to join his idea. There was a very different idea when we started.
Cool.
So the idea was, Alex and I met because we both UCL guys. We both wrote something with this professor, another Alexander Murray. Hi, Alex.
So many Alexanders.
Exactly. There seems to be a lot of them in my life. Yeah. And we started working together, and that was great. And it's been a steep learning curve since. We're very different. We're very complementary. He's a Russian national, been living in the UK for over 10 years, A levels at Oxford, and then did the UCL. A super bright guy, very quantitative in his way of thinking. He's very logical in his problem-solving approach. And I think what I bring to the picture is a much more fluid way of thinking. I like my thinking based on intuition, and then let's verify that. Whereas Alex needs all the data, but I think that this kind of comes up well in the middle. So I'm not a solo founder. I'm thankful to my funding partner to do this with him.
Of course.
There is a third person in the venture. There is Tom Morgan. Thank you, Tom. That is a much more experienced businessman than we are. He was MD at Accenture for a while, and he kind of gives us that C-level, C-suite introductions and conversation, and look at the way a business can work. It also, that's the great advantage. The other thing that it does, it puts pressure on us, so we can not dilute and own what we
be more
did.
focused.
Yeah, exactly.
Focus is one of the hardest things I found
It is.
to do in a startup environment, because it's so easy. If you're the kind of person who comes up with a lot of ideas and you like to just tinker and think about the future and have a vision there or whatever, and it's so easy to come up with tons of ideas of things you could potentially work on, right? And
then you're left with no time to work on them.
Yeah, precisely. But not only that, but even if you do actually end up working on, even if you do end up thinking, okay, well, let's add that to the product, or let's do this there, you end up diluting the product so much that it even just becomes hard to sell, right?
Exactly.
So yeah. Okay, so you've got 3 people on the team right now. You've got a bit of funding recently.
Tiny. Yeah.
Grant funding, right? Which is great. So it's non-dilutive for you guys. And right now, what would you say is kind of what phase are you in right now? What are the milestones that you kind of are looking forward to?
So,
I mean, I'm happy to talk for a bit while you chew. That's if you want to. So one more thing about no, I'm joking.
So where we are right now, we have growing customer base. We have some paying clients. We're working with a number of different charities, and we are starting to get good interest from corporates willing to push their CSR or their ESG money toward us. So I would say for the first time, we're at a real growth stage. We were able, as we planned to do, to get 3 new food banks on board over the last kind of 6 weeks.
Great.
So this is becoming operative over the next couple of months, to be honest. And this is exciting. We will probably look for. We have 2 ways here. So realistically, with the money that we will make from these new partners, we will be able to sustain ourselves.
Yeah.
Not going to become rich at all, but we're going to pay some costs, and
That's
that will
great
give
from
us
a business,
that will give us an idea in the next couple of months to say, all right, let's push this to the next level by ourselves. So just the 2 of us, can we make it a sustainable, tiny business in East London, or in London, or
when you say sustainable, you mean like breaking even? Or,
no, I mean like we're gonna pay ourselves salary, and we're gonna do that, and that's doable with let's say 5 or 6 more food banks.
Okay.
I think that there are 3,000 food banks in the country. Okay? So there is scope for this.
Okay.
3,000 on one side, and there are 50,000 associated food banks charities in Europe.
Okay. Got it.
So
there's a large number. Yeah, of course. Yeah. That's really good. I mean, you can also see this being used in multiple ways. So the food banks is just kind of like the low-hanging fruit, let's say.
That's exactly what I think should happen, right? Because the other thing of this is, when you need food, you generally need other forms of support.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. Let's leave this for a second.
We can go into that later. Yeah, sure.
So, and where we are is like, we might stay small. What I would like us to do is to get a bit of grant funding or actually equity funding, and get it to the next stage. So make this national. In order to make it national, we would need to get a national retailer on board, which is potentially achievable. And that will give us the service base that we need to do 2 things. A, connect with a lot of new charities, and B, and councils, and B, to give the confidence to the small retailers that a large retailer is already on board, so why shouldn't they do it? And that, I think, creates a good circular local story, because local business can also participate on that, And
absolutely. And in terms of the sort of obstacles in the way, you don't really provide, in terms of infrastructure, there isn't really much to do. Primarily, it's an app on a phone that people can use, right?
Yeah, well, it's unfortunately there is a bit of work that we need to do there. So right now, the process is quite simple. We have all the materials, but what we are suggesting is even though it seems quite logic, but is a change, right?
Sure.
So we need to change people's mind from doing something one way to do it the other. So yes, the app is the way to do it, but the sales becomes before, right? So it's like we need to get into a space by which we acknowledge there is a way of, there is a problem, there is a way of doing things, there is a better way of doing things that we can all witness, and then we need to test it.
Move that way, sure.
So until we are recognizable, I think that sales process is a bit. It takes a bit more time than just buying a pair of shoes.
Well, let's put it this way as well. You're working with an industry. You're working with the charitable sector. You're working with. I'm not sure how similar it is to government, but I do know enough to know that things can be a little bit slower moving than if you're working with private companies. Decisions can take quite a while to make, and one really key example here is actually I sat on a board for an organization that is officially a charity at one point, and just the sheer number of people on the board alone. How the hell on earth do you make decisions quickly? It's so difficult. So and maybe this is part of the reason why I also think charities are better suited for more kind of urgent things, but if you're dealing with charities, obviously you won't need to go to board level, but whatever happens at board level in terms of inefficiencies generally tends to trickle down, at least in my experience with charities. And so I can imagine that for you, the sales cycle, the sales process might be a little bit tougher than you'd like it to be, just in terms of, we need to make sure it's approved or blah, 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 or like, okay, what about this? What about security? What about blah, blah, blah? So, and it might need to go through multiple, maybe, especially if you're working with bigger charities, I mean, this is going to be inevitable that it will probably need to go through multiple committees before anything gets approved, right? From a governance perspective.
Absolutely. So it does need to go to the board level.
Yeah, there you go. So it's the kind of thing. So committees are not enough, essentially. From okay,
no,
okay, but interesting.
What we're learning, and I think that we are doing very well, is that the time to sale is reducing every time we make a sale. So yes, it's taking us quite a lot of time to get.
How long was the first one? Just out of curiosity, or how long was the longest one? Let's say the longest one. How long? Like how many months?
We started in. Realistically, if you put it this way, we started a sale when we started a pilot with Acne Food Bank, working with Acne Food Bank in November 2021. So we started working with them.
Okay, so now 2021, yeah.
Okay, and we just got a contract this year. Okay, so
oh my goodness,
we've been working on good faith.
So effectively 2 years.
For
not 2 years, no, sorry, effectively a year. No, my bad. My maths is way off. We're definitely not in November 2023 yet.
No.
So a year. Yeah, I know. Tell me about it. So a year and 5 months.
A year and a few months to kind of make them.
That's a very long sales cycle, my
it's
friend.
Impossible. It's impossible to do it. Wow. But now what makes me hang on this is what I said before. So over the last 6 weeks, we were
that's incredible. Yeah, so it's down to 2 weeks.
If we can do this switch and replicate this switch, we are onto something.
Yeah, absolutely. Are the new food banks you're bringing on also kind of like fairly good food banks, quite well known, good volume?
Yeah,
as well. I mean, if they're going to pay your salaries, they probably are.
In London, there are 40 food banks that turn more than £300,000.
Okay.
Which means that they are tiny, but they also means that they buy food.
Yeah.
They have operations, they have an operation manager, they have a warehouse, they have all these kind of things. So they might be interested, given the demand is growing 20% a year.
Wow,
crazy. To service
the demand right now for food banks is growing at 20% per year.
Yeah. So that's throughout the pandemic,
20 year on year, 20%.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
God.
So unless you realistically in London, you rent a new warehouse,
that's a really big number. Yeah. That's
okay.
Crazy. Wow.
It's much more than the demand for internet.
I mean, so people are getting hungry and not needing as much internet. Fair.
No, but actually, we were better able to supply internet than to supply food, which is okay. No.
Wow. So, because you work across different things, right? You're not just so different services and different products. Fair play. Wow.
And so that and what's their option? Their option is to rent a new warehouse and to buy more food, or to find a way to use a similar amount of resources without investing too much in physical infrastructure that allows them to offer the service they are offering, or a slightly different
which
service.
makes a lot of sense.
I think it does. Yeah.
Well.
So, and there are two organizations in these countries that deal with food poverty. One is the IFAN, so in the Independent Food Aid Network, and one is the more famous Trussell Trust. We work with Trussell Trust in Acne, and we are opening new hubs. But keep that a secret.
Yeah. No, of course. I won't tell anyone, I promise.
Don't, please keep it for yourself.
That's amazing. Incredible to see. So you're very much, my understanding is you're trying to take the approach of get to being a sustainable business as much as possible without requiring outside funding. Was that an accurate assumption? Okay. Any particular reason for that?
Yes.
I mean, because there are like the seemingly obvious answers, but I'd like to hear.
There are two big reasons for this. One is that we want.
I think just bring the mic a little bit closer to you.
One is that we want our
just a little bit. That's perfect.
Our whoever capital partner will be to be somebody that embraces our view of the future. Yeah. And the sooner we think you bring a capital partner in, the more tampered your vision could be. Okay, so if you have, because a year ago we had an idea, now we have a better idea and a bit of a product, and so on and so forth.
Of course.
So, or 2 years ago we had an idea. Last year we had a product and idea. Now we have something that people are willing to pay for.
Okay.
So, how much would have this cost in terms of dilution, in terms of somebody else's risk? What is the risk that somebody else will put into a business that is very risky?
Got it.
So.
What an existential question.
What is the amount of, and what is the value of that risk? So, and what is the value of my time and Alex's time for 2 years in order to achieve something? Because if we just did it for the money, we would probably do something different. So we do it because we want to solve a problem and we think there is a value in solving that problem.
Got it.
Okay, so I think that this is more of a ethical way of seeing life. So let's add value before we claim that value, which is not very
common,
I would say, or maybe. Well, I don't know.
Becoming more and more so. Absolutely, becoming more. Yeah.
So I think that this is important, and
I think I'm definitely in a bubble. But I'm in a huge bubble. A lot of the founders I've spoken with in the past, a lot of the people that generally I network with and so on, are trying to do something that's good, sustainable in the long run. It's kind of like social impact driven, or trying to do something for the world, but at the same time building a profitable business, right? And I have a lot of thoughts around that, by the way, and I think it makes a lot of sense that us as a developed country, there's the conversation to be had there, I think. Okay,
that's some drilling.
Yes, yeah, that's interesting. So I was thinking exactly what does that sound? It's not too bad. It's not being picked up. So there's I think a conversation to be had around what the expectation should or could, or whatever word you want to put here, be for people from different parts of the world, people from different backgrounds, people from different upbringings. And it's an interesting one because I think there's a definite movement in the West which is really good, or at least like in sort of more countries that have had a bit more freedom financially for the past number of years or decades or whatever. There's definitely a movement of, okay, let's do stuff that's better for the planet, better for the world, better for everyone. And I am somebody who comes from the East as well. So I was born in Egypt, right? Came here when I was 12. And I've seen both sides of the story. And to ask somebody, and I mean, Egypt is okay. I mean, nowadays it's with the quantitative easing and everything's going on there. You probably are not aware of that because it doesn't, it's not important enough to make global headlines. But there's a lot of financial problems that are happening over there at the moment, unfortunately. But the point is that I couldn't ask someone from even a middle class family in Cairo to I could never demand of them that they do something that's social impact driven or good for the world if it means that they would need to take a cut on their, say, profitability or revenue or safety and security.
You sure?
I honestly, because if it won't make a difference, sure, absolutely choose the more impact driven option. But if it will make a difference to your safety and security as a family, as a individual, as a whatever, then in a way in my opinion, it's a bit of an unfair thing to demand, and I feel like it's a bit of us projecting onto other.
Then please to explain me this better, because
sure.
I feel extremely privileged. Okay?
Sure.
So I don't come from a rich family, but I was given everything. I was given an education. I was put in the condition to learn and create my own life. So I'm very grateful for that. And with all the learning and all the possibility that there is in this country or in a country like or in a country like Italy for what it means, or in Europe, yes, I'm taking the risk to do something different, but I'm not compromising the risk for myself. So yes, probably I would earn a lot of money if I was working again in consultancy or in banking or this kind of things. But that would not be enough for me at this stage. So whatever money I see my friends earning, I don't know, being on 300k or 350k plus bonus. Oh yeah. And I'm like, and they're fucking sad, man.
Yeah. I mean, they're working their ass off.
Yeah, they are, and, like a friend.
Was much, but
a good. With the Silicon Valley Bank crashing last week, I could see some people really feeling the pain, being desperate, being suicidal. So more money also means more stress in that kind of environment and that situation. And you're always so detached, or my impression is that you're always so detached from what you do and from the impact you have and from what you're creating, that maybe that there is less meaning or less sense in doing that. And so I think that the risk that I'm putting on face tonight is, yes, it's probably I'm never gonna become a bank director or something like that. But who cares? It's not of my interest.
Yeah.
So I'm the balance on this plate is like, can I do something that I care about, that I'm interested in, that is new, that is impactful, and that is helping people, and also have a good life? It's in a process, right? So let's see if this happens. But the downside of that is, okay, everything goes to crap. I'll invent something else, or I'll get a job, or I'll do some other bit of consultancy. So I don't feel unsafe for that. Now, if you're talking about a family in Northern Africa, or in I wouldn't say it's developing country, but it's middle income country.
Middle income country, exactly. Yeah.
Probably even upper middle income in the case of Egypt, right? So,
up until recently, sure.
But what is the risk there? So, how are you gonna compromise your family security if you're doing?
See, we have a safety net in the UK, in most European countries, in the US, in Canada, in whatever. Excuse me. There is a safety net. If all else fails, it's pretty straightforward to jump back up again and figure something out, right? That safety net is not as existent in that part of the world or in those countries, and it's definitely not existent in a developing country, but it's also not as existent as you think it is in a sort of middle income country.
Okay.
So over here, for example, you can declare bankruptcy and not being affected as an individual, right? That's a lot more difficult to do, for example, in certain parts of the world.
Even in Italy.
Even in Italy as well. Yeah. There you go. Wow. which is kind of unfortunate because it doesn't drive a lot of good business. But but things like that, and then the other side of things is that education institutions, charities, funds, scholarships. There's a lot of things that are available here to support and help people who may not have as better a chance in life. Excuse me. It's extremely difficult to get your hands on things like that there. It's as in, especially with the level of knowledge that people have, like, you know, if there are probably funds and scholarships you can apply to from anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
But you don't know what you don't know as well. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I think the mindset is very different too, because if you grew up in a poor environment, and I've spoken to a lot of people who've come from, you know, very poor environments or poor backgrounds and less advantaged backgrounds and so on. And if you come from that place, a lot of people just make a decision, I am never going to be there again, ever, right? Because they've tasted that and they don't want to do that ever again. And in a way, I can understand and sympathize with saying, okay, well, I'm going to try and do the best I can for myself and my family and for the world. But if the choice is between providing security for my kids so that they don't have to go through what I went through, then I'm going to choose that. I can very much understand that and sympathize with it.
I think there are very few San Francis that in the world, right?
Very few what, sorry? San
Francisco.
Ah, right. Yeah, of course.
Always go to others.
Yeah.
But we don't think we are that at all.
No.
We just think that we are in a lucky position.
We are in an extremely lucky position to be.
So we should
use it
take
exactly.
Advantage of it. We should leverage this lucky position we're in.
That's exactly it. And help put more people in lucky positions. I think that's how ultimately is. And that's what I was saying earlier about, you know, like you want to increase the level of quality for everybody, right?
Hopefully so.
Hopefully anyway.
Hopefully so.
Yeah.
Definitely. But one thing that I wanted to ask you is this, right? For example, I simply don't know enough, but I'm coming to learn a little bit about Islamic culture, you know, and the concept of charity in Islam, right?
Sure.
So you do not provide maybe when you have to put at stake your family security, but there is a big part of the ethical belief that many people share.
Absolutely.
That you should really
and
care
people
for
do.
the other person.
Yeah. And people do give a lot of charity in Muslim countries.
And there is a good thing about interest rate in charities and cost in charities that have been talked about. So in the Islamic world, so I think that
it's 2.5%. So
exactly.
So 2.5%. So the rule in Islam is that basically it's 2.5%. I mean, I don't want to butcher the rule because I don't know it inside out. But very broadly speaking, anything above what you need for your means, think about it this way. As a business, you have your gross profit and your net profit, right? Anything on your net profit as a human, right? So anything that's above the means of providing for yourself or for family or whatever is needed, then the must is that 2.5% of that goes to charity. And then, of course, but then there are so many other things that encourage charities and donations and so on. And there are really, really, really interesting developments. I actually was in the Middle East recently. There are really interesting developments in the Middle East now, using blockchain, using different technologies to enable better charitable and better giving between, because like giving is such a massive part of the culture. You know, say for example, if a family is struggling for whatever, they know someone or somebody knows them or whatever, then the word gets out, and then collectively people will come together and kind of help that family in a way. And that happens on a very regular basis, right? But it all happens manually. So there'll be one person that goes around and collects money from different people to then go and give it to the family and so on. So there are companies out there, for example, now, I think there's one called Taka DAO or something, which, so you basically connect different people together through a blockchain, so people can all donate toward whoever needs whatever for whatever it is that they might need, and everything's tracked, everything's whatever, and then it's kind of like it's like a network of giving back and forth in a way, which is really interesting.
So this is super beautiful. Is when we started this, blockchain was a little bit less advanced than it is now, and I always thought that it could have been interesting. However, there are examples in which blockchain failed in the charity sector, even when sponsored by big players. For example, Alice AI, I think it's called. That was supported by Google, kind of was trying to do that same, or provide that same level of traceability using blockchain that we are realistically doing in a non-blockchain manner, but with the same level of
trackability,
or kind of very similar level of trackability. You know, we use some of old school tricks of the trade to make people compliant and tell us what they want to do. Okay.
Interesting.
So,
do I want to dig? No, that's fine.
Nah,
I'm not.
but that's less relevant. But
of course.
It's important because
absolutely.
unless blockchain, which I think will happen at some point with fiat currency on or with the new development of Ethereum or this kind of things, is very interesting. But
I don't understand nearly enough about it. I'm fascinated by a lot of what's going on, and I'm fascinated by the underlying technology, but I don't understand anywhere near enough to.
I think the technology is super cool. I don't get it. It's like it's way above my understanding. But
above your pay grade.
Well, above my brain capacity, to be honest. But I think we're using it in. We're playing with it, and we didn't understand how to use it yet. From what I know and from what I get, repository of values is not good enough to keep a system that like Bitcoin going.
Sure.
So there needs to be an intrinsic value or an intrinsic exchange of representativity, and the stability in that. But
tying, like having real, what's the word? Creating. There's a word for it. Creating a real value for it in the physical world, effectively. So to speak.
Real asset or connection to real asset values. But let's see. Very interesting. But again, 3 years ago, when we were thinking about this, it was a very simple decision. So we wanted to bring down the cost of charity to the minimal cost possible, which is basically the cost of transaction plus minimal operative cost in the future. And right now, the best ones that doing charities, or the most efficient charities, are like Give Direct. I don't know if you know them. They send money via text on cell phones.
Very cool, yeah.
Okay, so but that's the first part of charity, right? So sending money. So is there a way of measuring what is happening with that money? So we want to close that back, and they operate at 15%. Okay, so the cost of delivering that charity, which is the most effective charity in the world by the ranking of Charity Navigator or this kind of thing, is 15%. So, and that's the most effective one. So can we do better than that?
So wait, so you mean only 15% of the donated money goes to something?
85% goes to the...
I was going to say, their OPEX is... Okay, got it. Sorry. Right. They're operating at 15%.
The cost operating that thing is 15%.
Okay.
Right? Which
I mean, that's pretty good.
It's not bad.
But
we can do better. Okay?
Yeah,
we can do
sure.
much better.
Sure.
And realistically, with blockchain, back then it costed about 20p to write a line of code. Okay. So no.
Yeah, too expensive. Sure. You'd need a couple of million or something. Okay.
Well, yeah, you never know.
Yeah.
You have someone to introduce, but actually, if you have somebody to introduce on the
investment side,
no, on the Islamic and the Middle East kind of connections, that might be quite interesting, because
I have plenty.
I'd be very happy just to share the ideas, because I think that the ecosystem that we've created, that I've been trying to describe, and that I can see clearly in my head working more and more, might be very, very appealing for some large players. Very appealing.
That could definitely be really interesting over there. The thing I'll say is, one other concept in Arab culture, in Middle Eastern culture, but in Islamic culture, is that when you give charity, you don't make the person feel like they're being they're a victim or that you're giving them charity, right?
Exactly.
So there will be something there for you to think about in terms of if people need to verify purchases and things like that, how do you position it and do it in a way so it doesn't feel like the person is, I don't know how to explain it, but it doesn't feel like they're being, it's like, oh, okay, right, well, I have to do this. Yeah, precisely, yeah.
Okay, so what if I give you a different angle on this? So, because I had a conversation around this some time ago. Now, let me try to think how we place that. So the idea is that if I can leave a gift here on this table and think that somebody will pick this gift up along the line. So my interest is just leaving the gift because I know that somebody that needs that gift is gonna make good use of it. Now, is there, but this is a question for you because I don't know, okay? So one thing about what I believe being a gift is that ability for the receiver to say thanks.
Yeah.
So that doesn't, it's not pitifying or diminishing.
No, that's not, no, in that sense, no, that's fine.
In any form or manner, right? It's like appreciative of two men understanding each other or two individuals or two humans, and being in that position of parity in that exchange.
Sure.
And that thank you means a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
For both parts.
Of course.
For both parts. Even for the one that says thank you. Because I like to say thank you.
Yeah, of course.
To somebody that
I don't. But.
Okay. but
no, sure.
But
Yeah, of course,
Did you get my point?
I did, absolutely. So, yeah. So you do it. Okay, so you can do it like that. Yeah, that makes sense. By the way,
it's enough to solve this potential.
I think there's definitely something to brainstorm around that. Like I do agree. I think that market could be a really interesting one for you. But definitely something to look into further. Have you looked much into cash injection and things like that, and whether cash injection is more effective than certain types of donations or whatever? Have you done much research around that at all, or is it not kind of crossed your path yet?
There's a big movement in the UK that is called the cash first approach.
Okay.
So, which is pushed by the iPhone network. Sabine Goodman, she's a great person that is kind of bringing this concept around in the UK now. And she's saying people don't need food bank, people don't need subsidies, they don't need any of that. They need higher salaries, they need more money to do better, to have better access to their services. Now, my position is midway there. Okay, so it's like, yes, definitely in a perfect society where, general AI was creating jobs for everyone, and we all had a UBI or a universal basic income that it was distributed, and money was not a problem because productivity is infinite. Yes.
Okay.
But we're not there yet.
Uh-huh.
Right? So how can we allocate in a much more efficient way cash to individuals? And is that process of allocation that becomes difficult, right? So is that process of reaching the individual very cheaply and being able to prevent that money goes directly in a system, so the banking system that might take that money away from him or her, as we said before, if they are in debt or in a stressful situation, and to reduce the allocation cost, to reduce the monitoring cost of that money as well. Because I do think that cash, without being digital, we don't know where it goes. So this is a bit of information. We don't know today how much cash there is in the world. We simply don't know.
Really? Well, actually, that would make, Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. Yeah, I can imagine. There's probably a lot of people out there with stuffed cash and mattresses, right? There's no way of tracking that. Okay.
We don't know. Okay, so how much cash do we need to serve the needs. We need to measure the needs. We need to, and unfortunately, it comes down to this. You know, we need to understand if it's 20 million people, as we discussed before, if it's 3 million people that need real support, or if it's out of these 3 million people, might be just 500,000 people that actually need
the support,
super support. And if we can reduce the cost of the industries for delivering that support from 60, 70% to 2, 3, 10%,
that's even better.
Then it means that maybe we don't need more money.
Yeah. And that's actually, that's a really good point. The efficiency side of things is a very, very important point. Yeah.
So yes, more cash to people, but we need more cash to people when we will teach financial education at school. When we will teach that what is saving, what is investment. We will teach what is
don't get started
income.
on that.
You know, we don't.
It's ridiculous.
And if our priority is because of peer pressure to get a new iPhone on on a monthly payment and Netflix and Amazon, but then fucking you don't have money for food.
Yeah.
That's not going to be solved by FaceDonate. They're not going to be solved by food banks. That's not going to be solved by unless there is education.
Yeah.
And again, we go back to your point that there needs to be for-profit, for-purpose company that that educate better, and there needs to be a government education that pushes people to make better decisions.
Yeah, and to make that government education that pushes people to make better decisions, you need to have faster cycles for change.
Absolutely.
Quicker change within these institutions. I worked in the educational side for a while, for not for a while, but just for a little bit, but I very quickly got to see just how crazy things, how embedded things are. Like, I was lucky enough to sit on a panel when I was at university that approves courses, that looks at whether something should be brought on as a new course. Gosh, the bureaucracy is, oh my God. Like a new technology comes out. Say Chat GPT is out now. When do you think they will start teaching about it at universities?
When it's obsolete.
Precisely. And that is it's a huge problem, right? Because things will take, like a good year. Okay, so we need to design a course. We need to figure out where it best fits and in what schedule. And obviously timetabling is a huge thing, which is, part of the thing Bill Gates was so good at, right? Timetabling. Well, it was Bill Gates, wasn't it, with timetabling? I thought that's how one of the way, was it Bill Gates? I'm pretty sure it was Bill Gates who started off.
Story then.
So I think he started off by doing helping with exam timetables.
At uni.
At university, for the university, right?
Yeah.
And then that somehow led to Microsoft or whatever, right?
I don't know his story. I have his book somewhere on a shelf, but I haven't read it yet.
I haven't read it, to be honest with you. I remember seeing the stories and anecdotes somewhere. But, things take us such a long time to become approved and then be taught in schools and universities. And so right now we've realized that there's a problem with financial education. There's a lack of financial education. We've known this is a problem for God knows how long. I mean, a good decade or so now, at least, probably.
Well, until we stop doing the domestic economy courses, like budget,
there's such basic things that should be taught in schools around that. And you could go about this for a while, but the point is that it takes ages for them to get approved. So my again solution: government takes too long. Good, thank you very much. Goodbye. I'm not going to do anything there. I'm just going to go and privatize this and then do it privately. So a focus for profit company. Financial education for kids now is huge, right? Absolutely. It's an industry that's booming. So.
Oh yeah, there are a lot of startups in that.
That sense loads.
They're doing great work.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely. But there is a lot to be done. So I'm very thankful for you to inviting me here today. To be honest,
I'm enjoying you being here, my friend. This is a great conversation. We are going to have to stop at some point very soon. But before we do, I wanted to ask you a couple more questions. So, first thing is, what is it that drives you? So you mentioned, previously there was something, there wasn't anything that's making you get out of bed in the morning if you're excited about work. Now, what is it for you that does that? Obviously, you're working on this, but
realistically, there are the stories of the people that I work with. That's what really pushes me to do this. And then I'm a I'm a nutter, and I'm trying to make my way work. Okay, and because I see that there is a better way, and I see that my way is at least an improvement on the current way. So I think it's a lot of ego, and a lot of drive, there's a lot of sense of insecurity, there's a lot of willingness to learn as well. There's a lot of stubbornness. So all these things together, combining
the stubbornness is, I mean, not to stereotype, but come on, it comes hand in hand with being Italian, right?
Oh yeah, and the passion as well, I guess. So I found something that doesn't necessarily have to have a human face that I'm passionate about.
That's great. Yeah, that's great.
And so all these things, and then this to me ticks all the boxes because it's intellectually stimulating. It's a difficult problem to solve. It's challenging at very many different levels. It allows me to speak from head of corporations that I might want to engage in for social corporate responsibility literally the last man on the street that is using some of our services. And this, I like humanity. I don't like society, but I like humanity, so if we can and having that breadth and depth of touching points with very, very, very different human beings is a bliss.
Wow. That's very inspiring, my friend. You have a lot to get out of bed for. I like that. And advice to an entrepreneur who wants to go into something that is good for profit.
Don't. No, joking.
There you are.
I'm joking. I would say find a good partner. Find a person that a good team. Unless you are, there are some people that are absolutely driven by themselves and they can do it by themselves, but it's not gonna be always like that. That it's probably gonna take longer than you expected. So having somebody that is complementary to you and that you get very much along with, and you can have very difficult conversation with, it's something that will at least keep you engaged enough to see this thing as legs. Okay. So otherwise, in my previous experiences, at one point, due to people or due to me, I wasn't willing to say, okay, I'm gonna let's
stop.
Let's continue doing this. This very painful exercise.
My friend, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for being so open, so honest. It was really lovely talking to you as well.
I hope it was
best of luck with Face Donate. Best of luck with everything else. And I'm sure we're gonna have plenty more conversations in the future. I feel like we could dive into a lot of deep topics there. So yeah,
definitely, and maybe without an audience, even.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. My friend, thanks, and we'll see you around.
Definitely. Ciao.
We hope that you liked the episode. This podcast was sponsored by QFind, a hiring platform that matches candidates with jobs and employers based on many factors that ensure longer-term alignment. It goes way beyond package and salaries and takes into account much, much more than that to ensure a happy working environment for everybody. To find out more about this podcast and to see further releases, we'll be announcing them at the @qfinds.io Instagram page, as well as on the qfinds.io website, as well as from my own personal Instagram page and my own personal LinkedIn. All information you need that we spoke about in the podcast or this information mentioned here will be mentioned below in the description. So take a look, visit those links, and if you like anything or want to get in touch, please do. And lastly, stay tuned for more. Have an amazing week ahead of you.